what we're doing doesn't work every time, but I think a lot of the kids who come here do get the help that they need, and they're put on a much better course in life. He had been homeless, lived with us, and he said to me, I'm the first male in my family not to be in prison.
Andy told me I'm not mean enough to him on the podcast, so I'm going to work on that. Because the truth is, I want the listeners to know I'm way meaner than he is.
Hello, Vermont. I'm Andy Julo.
And I'm Joanna Grossman.
And this is There's No Way in Creemee.
Vermont, politics, culture, and beyond.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello, folks, and welcome to There's No A in Creemee. This is Season 2, Episode 1. We decided to start Season 2. We sort of had this, 5-month run of sort of like a startup season where we were kind of figuring out what we were doing while we were flying it. And thank you, listeners, for all coming along for the ride.
I'm sure they had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we were going to do it every other week, and then all of a sudden we couldn't stop. It's like you're on a conveyor belt, and it's like pulling you forward.
Every other week, and probably summer would be a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah,
and that did not turn out to be.
Those were our plans.
Yeah.
And instead it was just like every week we're like, wow, but there's a really good one we could do next week. Oh, well, let's do this. And then, and even when we had opportunities to skip it, we were like, no, we can't skip an episode.
Yeah.
Like, we'll die.
Well, even when we had scheduled vacations, we brought in other people to fill in for the other one.
Which was really fun.
It was.
We had great guest hosts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
your solo episode was really good.
I thought it was really good, and you and Doug
excellent.
were really great. I had to call in and check on you, but
there was a difference between you called them a solo episode, and
I just meant it was like one of us
went out of
without
town,
the other one of us,
and you recorded an episode and you edited it and you put it out.
Yeah.
You
did that.
went out of town.
Yeah.
And you left me a checklist, 15 minutes worth of audio instruction, and then you called into the show.
Wait, what? They were just suggestions.
Mine was kind of a solo in the John Lennon sense, and yours was more of a Paul McCartney.
You could have disregarded my suggestions.
Safely? I don't know.
Yeah, no, right. Definitely.
I was
trying to be helpful.
Aware that was an option.
It was more. This is a funny conversation, but I was more like I just felt bad that I was abandoning you, and I was trying to compensate.
See, I left town, and I was like, I was saying
that's not really true.
Well, no, I felt bad about leaving you with it, but I will say.
No, I'm glad we did those though.
Of the things that in 5 days in the wilderness, we saw 3 people. Nice. They were trail runners.
Yeah.
They may have been ghosts because they came from nowhere.
That's so weird.
we saw nobody, and I'd lie in my hammock at night, and I would think about things, and sometimes you worry about stuff, and I'd worry about my job or the construction site.
Sure.
But I did not worry about this podcast because I knew that you had it 100%. Yeah.
Well, right back at you. Yeah, I knew that, everything would be fine when I was away too. Yeah, it's good. But I really liked having the experience of doing the stuff you usually do. And I felt like, now when I ask you to clip out like one tiny little segment, I know what a pain that is.
Oh, really? I thought it was because you kind of approached that. You've always approached the editing with like, oh, I hate to ask you to do this, but would you?
Yeah,
would you
I do
cut
it
this?
anyway.
Would you do
Well,
that?
I say I hate it, but now I really hate it. It was just lies before.
Yeah, you realize, some of those little cuts you made me do.
Yeah, this was a growth experience.
Yeah, okay, that's good. It's good to sit in each other's chair and.
Yeah. But so we're launching our second season now because it is the 1-year mark of our partnership.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're explaining that to listeners because you had to explain it to me a few times.
It was totally obvious to me, but not to you.
Our partnership goes back beyond the podcast. Yeah, I feel a little insensitive for not picking up on that, but our partnership goes back prior to the podcast.
You should, Andy. You should feel bad about that.
I feel terrible.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Andy told me I'm not mean enough to him on the podcast, so I'm going to work on that. Because the truth is, I want the listeners to know I'm way meaner than he is.
Yeah, she baits me, and then we hit record, and she turns into this really nice person, and then I come off like a jerk.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to undo this nice guy reputation that you have.
Thank you for that.
So it's a 1-year mark of our partnership, and then so we ran your Senate campaign together. We did some work trying to help the party sort of learn some of the lessons that we learned, and that was frustrating. And we survived it. And
it's a good summary of that.
Yeah, and it's funny, like around that time, well, obviously we joked about doing a podcast during the campaign. I kept telling everybody we should do a podcast called Julo and the Jew.
Yeah.
And
which was funny when you said it, but when I say it.
The one time you said it, everybody
stopped. I looked like I could be an
"Guys,
extra
it's
in
my joke,
Indiana
it's my
Jones
joke."
6, so that's
It's not
doesn't land the same way when I say it.
It's not like technically offensive, but I see what was happening there.
Yeah.
So we did all this crazy stuff together, and then we started talking about doing a podcast. And then one day it was like, we were like, yeah, like, okay, let's like really do the podcast. And then like the next thing I knew, you'd like ordered microphones and were retrofitting your skate shack.
It was going to be a coffee shop, and then we switched to podcast, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. We were kicking around pretty much any non-political or politically adjacent, option, and landed on a political podcast. So that makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I'm really proud of about the podcast, we run through these, when we first got to know each other, these first few projects that we did together were hard. Like we took a beating. Like we really did.
Yeah.
We really, we fought the good fight. And we took some blows. And I think for a lot of people, and this is understandable, for a lot of people, like they need to open their coffee shop, right? They need to go and do something totally different, which is normal. But I mean, you and I aren't normal. And so instead, we crushed our suffering, into art, and we're, pushing it out into the world and hoping that Vermont can learn a little from our experiences, and we can learn a little from other people by having these conversations on the podcast and really turning it into something constructive and positive. And I just feel I'm so proud of that. And I really appreciate everyone for listening and for you for doing this with me. And I don't know, it's good stuff.
It's well put.
It reminds me a little of, I wanted to tell you guys this funny story. So my friend Cindy plays the cello. And when she was learning, she learned to play cello as an adult. And when she was learning to play cello, she was, struggling with it like anyone learning a new instrument, And so her music teacher had a jar called the can't jar. And every time Cindy said, I can't do something, she had to put $1 in the jar. So it was like a swear jar, but it was a can't jar. And I kind of feel like our partnership has this like metaphorical can't jar. like there is like can't is not allowed in this room. And like we're just always like, nope, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna do it. And there's always a belief that like whatever it is, that is like one of us will be like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna like build a spaceship and like move to the moon. And the other one's like, yeah, awesome, let's do it. Like it's like it's like crazy, but has been awesome for me.
Yeah, it's been an experience. Yeah, I've always been prone to that kind of thinking that I could do anything, and you came along and you encourage it, and it's dangerous sometimes.
I think it's what made me a good campaign manager.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
but it's it's been interesting to see how it plays out, how it goes. This podcast has been a really great expression of that. Yeah, and we'll keep doing stuff.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the harder things for me about the things that we went through is the idea that all of it was for naught. And for me, the grief process and all that gets so much easier when you can take that experience and continue to roll it forward and build something positive from it. Exactly.
So, as some of our friends know, people who are involved in the Democratic Party in Chittenden County, I'm not seeking re-election as Chittenden County's county chair for the Democratic Party. And that was at first a really difficult decision for me, but then really, really right. And I kind of wanted to share a little about like my take on that and how I've met so many amazing people I met you through being in party leadership, and just so many amazing people who care so much. And one of the things, and actually this kind of like comes back a little bit around from the first part of this conversation. One of the things that I've sort of observed is that I think in the party, if you get involved in the party, if you like take a role like I did, county chair or town chair or state committee or whatever, people get confused between whether they're supposed to be helping the party evolve or whether they're supposed to be upholding the status quo that it is right now. And I've sort of learned that there's these like two different kinds of people. This is like a gross generalization, of course, but like there's like these two kinds of people that exist in the Democratic Party ecosystem, and probably in the other parties too. That there's innovators and there's party planners. So there's people like me who just sort of instinctively are always thinking, oh, what can we do next? What could we do differently? How could we grow? And even what did we do wrong so we can not do it differently next time? And that's sort of like always my like ambient way of thinking and approaching things. And then there's what I like to call party planners. And they're big on sort of figuring out, okay, well, how can we support the existing, setup, the existing status quo? But I think that we get, as members of the Democratic Party, we get a little bit confused about, oh, is our job to like maintain the existing Democratic Party, or is it to help it grow? And we're coming up on what we call reorganization this fall, where every town and county in the state are going to be doing their internal party elections. And I just really want everyone to approach it like just for a minute, to like approach it as an innovator and think, okay, well, maybe I'll get involved. Maybe I'll help the party grow. Because I think something we can kind of all agree on is that the party isn't doing a great job right now. But we all have good ideas. And I think everyone should show up at that table in their town reorg and show up and share their ideas and get involved and be an innovator. And then once you get on the committee, you can plan parties too.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I was a history major, so one of the things you'll notice if you trace history is that Democrat, Republican is not a static label. Those parties have changed dramatically over even short periods of time. So somebody has to come in and be that innovator and add to the platform, or change the platform, or change the direction.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of feeds into this whole, like Elaine and I, talked a lot about incumbency. Yep. And the primaries, and it's all kind of like dovetailed together for me. In Vermont, it's such a small state, so we got sort of, Elaine called it a dependency on incumbency, and I thought that was really well put, that we kind of get locked into like, okay, like someone won, and we just have to like protect them. And that's actually not, even if they're good people, that's not really how the democratic process was intended to function. Like the idea is for like new people to always be getting in and contributing ideas, and then the voters get to pick.
Yeah, and one of the facts that Elaine brought to the podcast was that we have had 5 members of Congress in Vermont since 1974, and I just happened to be. I was looking for a book to read in my hammock at night on this backpacking trip, and I thought about rereading "Contrary Country" by Ralph Nading Hill, who's a great Vermont historian, and he was one of the ones who helped convince Electra Havemeyer Webb to get the Ticonderoga over to the Shelburne Museum. And he wrote this book, and it's a series of just short biographies of Vermonters. One who was one of the first to drive an automobile all the way across the country. And it was like, I don't know, 1906 or 7. Like there weren't even roads. Yeah. They were driving across fields. Oh my God. And this Vermonter did it. But one was on Matthew Lyon, who was one of our early members of Congress. And he featured pretty prominently when I worked in Philadelphia at Congress Hall, because he had one day spit in Roger Grissom's of Connecticut's face. Oh. Yeah. And so Grissom went and grabbed his walking stick and went to attack Matthew Lyon. Matthew Lyon ran to the fireplace, got a fire poker, and they just had it out whacking at each other on the house floor. Wow. He was also the first person. So John Adams passed the Aliens and Sedition Act, which made it illegal to criticize the government. And he was the first person to be thrown in jail for that. And he was actually reelected by Vermonters when he was sitting in his jail cell. But I was trying to remember, he was one of the first congressmen from Vermont. And I thought, well, is he the first? So I went and looked it up. He was the 6th member of just the House from Vermont. And there were 2 districts. So there were twice as many congressional districts. But still, Vermont was admitted in 1791. But in 1796, we had 6 members of the House already, and we had thrown out multiple incumbents. So our start was the exact opposite of where we ended up. Yeah.
Huh. That's really interesting.
So it didn't start in our roots.
Yeah. I wonder what created that pivot. I wonder if, something about technology bringing people closer together made the smallness of the state feel smaller.
Maybe.
Because I do think that's a big factor is that like Elena and I were saying, like, you don't want to run against someone that you're going to like see at the next table,
Right.
That kind of thing.
Well, and do you know at that period parties were just forming? Like initially they weren't supposed to happen. There were no parties, and then parties started to come in, and they were kind of ill-defined. So I think a lot of areas were kind of struggling with which party do we actually trust? And so people were getting dumped from these positions rather rapidly, probably all across the country at that point.
Oh, yeah, that could be.
Yep.
That makes sense.
So you came up to the island just before I left for my trip. Senator Welch came up to South Ural. He was at Snow Farm Vineyard, and the intent was to have a listening session for business issues and in particular the Canadian-American relations and how that's affecting island businesses. But obviously you open up these forums and people come from all around, and the questions are going to quickly turn to other issues.
Yeah.
So we got some good business questions in, but then, people started to really hone in on what are we going to do to protect democracy? And you could really feel in that tent, there was just a rising feeling that whatever we're doing, despite the best of intentions, is not enough.
Yeah.
And we really need an action plan if we want to preserve what we have here.
Yeah. Emotions were high.
They were. There was a young nurse that was there, and she, she was very pessimistic that she felt that democracy was basically over.
Yeah.
And the damage had been done, and it was just playing out. And the senator had Senator Welch had a pretty good response to that of just like we don't know how this is going to end, and I'm just going to wake up every day and do the best I can to keep it running and preserve democracy. But people wanted specifics. There was even a Republican stood up at the end and he said, look, you're going to flip Congress in 2 years. That's how it works. And what are you going to do? Like I feel that Donald Trump has identified the issues that are important to me. What are you going to do about it? It was a valid question. It's something we've been talking about quite a bit of like this. You can't just be against Donald Trump. You have to bring something to the table. It's these issues are real. People are feeling them. And for whatever reason, they are not feeling that the Democrats are doing enough to actually address those issues. And because of that, opposition to Donald Trump comes off often as opportunistic without offering something to them. It just feels like if you don't like Donald Trump, vote for me. What do you get out of that, right?
Yeah.
I get elected. What do you get?
Right.
Unless I'm bringing something to your life to make your life better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so present in my mind, all this stuff. I mean, it was extraordinary to hear all these constituents talking to him about their fears. And then just this past week, I've been doing, like I was mentioning, the Democratic Party is about to do these internal party elections called a reorg. And so I've been texting Democrats throughout Chittenden County as the chair, encouraging them to show up. And I've done texting. I'm not talking about fundraising texting, which I know everybody hates. I'm talking about, I've done like political engagement texting for years. I did it professionally for Indivisible for 2 cycles. And then, for every campaign I've run here in Vermont, we've done engagement texting, just reaching out to folks, finding out like what they care about, what we can do. And so I've been texting folks and inviting them, a personal invitation from me to come to reorg. And every time I've texted in Vermont, it's been pretty mild. I would say we get some like positives and some negatives, but I've never really had any like vitriolic kind of stuff like I have with a lot of my like out of state, red state texting. And this time was really different. And, my name and photo were on the text. And people were uniformly frustrated with the party. I had Republicans, understandably frustrated with the party because they don't, leave the party. I understand that. And then a lot of moderate Democrats really felt alienated from the party, and a lot of progressive Democrats felt alienated from the party. And I mean, there was almost no one who was like, the only people who responded positively were people who knew me. They were like, oh, Joanna, hi, I got a few of those, but it was mostly just like people feeling so frustrated and abandoned. And it broke my heart. I have to say, like, it really weighed on me. And I definitely got a lot more toxic kind of, and even threatening texts than I have before in Vermont. I've never had that in state before. And it just showed me that like the boiling point here is so high. And it's in part because of what you're saying. We're not showing what our alternative is. We're not showing what our plan is and our message and what we're going to do for our constituents, even though we know that, our communities need things to be protected from what's coming next. And we know what those are. Their housing, their healthcare access, their affordability, they're protecting our local businesses. Like, we know what they are. And I don't know why we can't get that message straight. But it was, a couple times I told people they cared about certain issues, and I told them about things that came through the last session that they didn't even know about because the message hadn't reached them. But it's just, we're not being clear. And I mean, the risks our country is enduring right now they're going to be catastrophic if we don't step up.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It is scary. Yep. But it's, as scary as what we're seeing from the Republicans on a national level is right now. I mean, it's sort of on us too, because we haven't had a good alternative to that. And we have to come up with it. And we've got, time is running short. 26 is right around the corner. And it's time to do it. Yeah.
So the governor gave this press conference, and Elaine and I talked about it a little bit, where our governor, who's a Republican, he was explicit. He said if Vermonters are hoping that we're going to protect them from Trump, they're out of luck. And I found that shocking.
That quote you just said struck me. And there's another thing that he said. He said, and this is a direct quote here, we have to trust our government. We have to trust the process. We have to trust Congress. We have to trust our elected representatives. And if we don't, it's an unraveling of our democracy, which, I mean, you read the intent there, and it's putting the guilt on people who don't trust their Congress or their government. Right.
It's putting the emotional labor on not just emotional, it's putting the labor on the electorate.
Absolutely. It's saying if you don't just outright comply with the will of your government, then you're not, you're the one who's unraveling democracy.
Which actually isn't democracy.
Exactly. I think, if you look at what's going on right now, who's really to blame for unraveling democracy? It's not coming from us not supporting our government. It's coming from our government not listening to us.
Yeah.
And Bob Kinzel thankfully didn't let him off the hook there. He said, do you trust them? And he said, there's a core issue here of whether or not you trust the federal government. And then, the governor said, I trust in some ways. I don't trust the actions of the president at times. I don't believe that his tactics are fruitful. And I think it does lead to mistrust. And I think that's unfortunate. But I think there's a lot of good people in government. And I believe we have to trust somebody, which was just, I don't know, it kind of sounded like everybody's uncle in early 2016-ish. That was, they were on their way to coming to accept.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point. And it's, the idea of kind of saying, oh no, just have blind faith in the leader. That's not the democratic way at all.
It's not the American way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a doozy. We got to get it together. So, democracy, not looking so hot. But we had an extraordinary guest come to talk with us this week who he deals with some really difficult subject matter. And he is so inspiring and so hopeful and gives people and vulnerable populations, people who are really up against it, a lot of hope. And so we had Mark Redmond from Spectrum come and talk to us. And that was just a great conversation. He has so much energy, and
he brings a lot of hope, a lot of energy to what is undoubtedly a difficult position to come to every day.
Yeah, and getting worse. And he just keeps seeming to bring more supports and services into that community. It's awesome, and I love talking to him. And I think you guys will like to hear the interview. All right. Hello and welcome to There's No A in Creemee. Today we have Mark Redmond from Spectrum. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Andy and Joanna. Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, I've been following your podcast since you launched it, and I love Creemees. So it was like it was a natural fit.
Right.
I had to be on. You know,
we actually got a little flack about the name, and I think it's worked out beautifully. People love Creemees, and we love politics.
And Creemees is Vermont. I know.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York, which you can probably tell from my accent.
Yeah.
People say to me, "You're not from here," and I grew up with Carvel. Carvel was created on Long Island. So that's what me and my siblings to this day, we don't call it soft serve. We call it Carvel.
So do you know what gravel is then? That makes sense to you as a topping?
Yeah, that was like the chocolatey, and he had Fudgy the Whale.
Oh my God, that's the best. So Elaine and I both grew up, I'm from New York too. And when Elaine was on the show, Elaine Haney, we were talking about that and how gravel, so it's these chocolate crunchies for listeners.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, they're so good and there's nothing like it. I love a Creemee, but it's like, I've been telling Andy, I'm like, gravel is just so good.
I've been here 22 years. It took several years, almost a decade to stop calling it Carvel. Okay? But now I'm fully converted. It's a Creemee.
There we go. And there's no A in it.
There's no A in it. I didn't
know that until I saw the title of the show.
Yeah, I didn't either. I mean, that's like kind of why it's the title. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became executive director of Spectrum.
Been working for 22 years with homeless youth and at-risk youth, gang members, kids suffering from depression, drug addiction. And I started the first charter school for at-risk children in Stamford, Connecticut. And I got married to Mary Beth, and then she got pregnant. And I called someone whose head of it called the New England Network, which was for like this overshadow organization for all youth serving organization. I said, any opportunities anywhere in New England, Maine, New Hampshire. So there's a rumor this place called Spectrum in Burlington, Vermont, may be looking for a new executive director. The person who's been there may be stepping down. I'll let you know if it's true. So a few months later, she emailed me and said, it is true. Here's how you apply. So I was one of 36 applicants, internal candidates, board member, so I thought, well, the chances of this are like really, really, really slim. And then they offered me the position, and by then we had a baby who was like 3 years old. So we moved up on February 19th, 2003. Liam was 3 months old. It was minus 33 degrees. I remember on Good Morning America, they do this, the coldest place in America. It was the coldest place in America is Burlington, Vermont. So of course, my wife and I are like, what did we get ourselves into? So that is how I became director of Spectrum, and that was 22 years ago, and it's been a fantastic experience. Not just Spectrum, but Vermont. I'm so glad we're in Vermont. Every day I'm grateful to be in Vermont.
Even when it's below zero, it's nice.
I've gotten used to that.
Yep.
I remember that first winter, I could not get warm.
Right.
I said, my core is frozen.
Yeah.
Steve and I purposely moved here on January 1st with the logic that it would get warmer every day so we could acclimate easily the first year.
Oh, how foolish of you.
Yeah.
And by the time it gets to mid-April and it's still cold, I'm like, why do I live here again?
Yeah, right.
It magically becomes paradise, right?
Right.
And it stays that way right through until whatever, late December. So it's a great place to live. And our son, it's a great place to raise a child too. He came here at 3 months old. He's 20, he'll be 23. He'll be moving to New York City soon, probably. And it was just a great place, great education and everything. Couldn't regret one thing.
Mark, tell us a little about Spectrum. So I mean, I think listeners, like we all have some familiarity with it, but one of the reasons that we were so excited to talk to you is because we're living in such a bleak moment, and you deal with such a vulnerable constituency, and you're giving them hope and really giving all of us hope every day. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little about what you do and how you do that.
So Spectrum does a lot of different things with young people. We do work with kids under 18, 14, 15, 16. But I would say our sweet spot is really that 18 up to 24. A lot of things end at 18 in Vermont. Foster care often ends at 18. Technically, you could stay a little later, but most kids choose to leave the foster care system at 18. They try and go back home. But the same problems that might have been there when they were babies, it could be homelessness, addiction at home, abuse, and then they start trying to live with friends, and they start couch surfing, and then they become homeless, and they come to us. Then you have the children's mental health system. Okay, so may have a young person get very good services at the Howard Center or the retreat, wherever, and now they turn 18. So logic would say, okay, so now they're going to transition to the adult mental health system. Well, it's not that easy, because the diagnosis you had that allowed you to be in the children's mental health system does not suffice for the adult mental, or your IQ can be too high. So we cut off a lot of rugs get pulled out from underneath people at 18. And that's really where Spectrum comes in, to really, if they literally need housing, we've got 26 beds here in Burlington. 2 weeks ago, we opened up 10 beds in St. Albans for homeless youth up there, so kids could live with us if they have to and stay for years. They could stay for a year and a half, 2 years, and not only get a place to live, help with finding a job, help with counseling. Maybe they suffer from addiction. We have addiction counselors. We have someone who'll teach them how to drive a car, how to open up a bank account. I was lucky. I had parents to teach me all these things. We're going to teach these kids all of these skills they're going to need so they can leave us someday and be independent. So that's a big piece of our mission. The number of those kids coming to us skyrocketed in the last few years. So I think 3 years ago, we had 5 licensed mental health counselors, and now we have 14. Wow. And UVM just moved its graduate counseling program, mental health. They're getting their mental health license into Spectrum. They moved their clinic into our building. Wow. So that helps us see more young people and train staff and possibly become our employees. So the mental health aspect of what we do has grown tremendously in the last few years.
I want to ask you specifically about St. Albans. I know you just opened a new facility there. St. Albans is a little bit more on par with a lot of the other smaller cities around the states. The problems that you see in St. Albans, are they different than you see in Burlington, or are these problems really universal no matter how big the community is?
The problems are different in this respect. So, when we have drop-in center right on Pearl Street in Burlington, mostly 18, 19, 20. Come on and get a sandwich, get a hot dinner, a hot lunch, change your clothes, take a shower, do your laundry. So we started one just like that in St. Albans. Let's see who shows up. 14, 15, 16. We were like, why are all these younger kids coming here? Well, in Burlington, you have the Boys and Girls Club, you have the King Street Center, you have beautiful YMCA. They don't have anything like that in St. Albans, So we saw these older kids too, 18, but then all these younger kids who may or may not be, they're probably not homeless. If they were homeless and you're 14, we're going to call the Department of Children and Families. But they live in poverty. There's hunger in those households. There's domestic violence in those. A lot of these kids are dropping out of school. So we're seeing these kids and helping them in various ways and even trying to work with their families. And the state just picked us to start a mentoring program up there. Now we're recruiting mentors for kids in Franklin County. So it's different in that respect, Andy, that we're seeing these younger kids, whereas now we took a field trip to Brattleboro a couple of months ago, and Brattleboro needs what we offer. And there's a nonprofit down there that does a very good job But when they saw what we do, they were like, we would love to partner with you. And I get calls from the city of Barrie, Northeast Kingdom. I believe but what we do is needed in almost every Vermont city. We don't have to come in as the heroes and do it alone, but we would love to partner, you know what I mean, with existing organizations to supply the expertise that we have.
So one of the things that, better than anybody, that Burlington and Vermont is dealing with homelessness and unhoused crisis right now. And I'm curious if you can share with us, what do you feel like most Vermonters might not understand about the unhoused population that you'd like them to know?
Oh, man, that's the question of the hour, the week, the day, the year, right? It's funny. I had a meeting with a philanthropist they give us $100,000 every year. So I met with them today and I walked through City Hall Park. And, you see, let's be honest, you see a lot of people are homeless, abusing drugs, in City Hall Park. It's not a mystery.
Yeah.
And I said to the philanthropist, my goal is that if I can get to an 18 or 19-year-old, help them with their mental health, help them get off drugs, help them get a job, help them learn how to drive a car, maybe go to college, they're not going to end up in City Hall Park. That's my goal. That's what I see as Spectrum's mission. How do we reach those younger people and get them on a good path so that they're not living in a tent somewhere, in City Hall Park or elsewhere? So the other things I would say about that, I'm working behind the scenes with judges, probation officers, treatment addiction experts. I feel like this is one thing we need to, a couple of things you need to work on in Vermont is if you're addicted to fentanyl, we don't have a heroin epidemic anymore. We have a fentanyl epidemic and a xylazine epidemic. And right now, if you agree to go for treatment, you basically get 14 to 17 days at either Valley Vista or Serenity House. Those are two very good organizations. But 14 to 17 days, if you're addicted to fentanyl, is not going to do it, okay? Meanwhile, we have these very good network of sober homes, turning point centers. They're great. They're great people who do great work. But we're missing, I keep calling it the missing middle. So we did the research. So let's go over to New Hampshire. Let's see what they've got. They've got 15 days detox, 15 days rehab. Then you transition to 30 days, what's called partial hospitalization. Then you transition to 30 days to a sober. So you have 90 days of coordinated care, right?
Wow, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All coordinated through the same doctors and Now, could you relapse after 90 days? Of course you could. But your chances of staying clean are so much higher than 14 to 17 days at Valley Vista or Serenity House. And again, not to criticize those organizations. They're doing the best they can. So that is one thing. We have got to fix that in the Vermont system of care. And then the other issue, and I'll get heat. I've gotten heat on it before, and I'll get heat on it again. I was on a national podcast on this issue recently. I've written columns in Vermont Digger. There are times we see at Spectrum a young man or a young woman who suffers from what's called severe and persistent mental illness. And we will send them up to the emergency room, and they will stay there for, I don't know, a couple of hours, whatever, and then they're sent right back to us, And I've actually called psychiatrists at the emergency room and said, how can you honestly say to me, this person is not a danger to self or others, So it's an ugly term, involuntary commitment. A lot of people may look, whatever it is, it's temporarily suspending someone's rights so that they can get the mental health care that they need, but they don't necessarily think that. I mean, I've had parents call me and said, my child thinks the CIA put a chip in it, whatever it is. When the child was under 18, I at least had some say, but now that my child's an adult, I have no say at all. I've had to hire a private investigator because I hear he's on the streets in Washington. I mean, you hear these horror stories. from parents. And I just think in Vermont, and again, there are people who disagree with me vehemently, and they're good people, but I think our involuntarily commitment, regulations and laws need to be looked at. So does that make sense, what I'm saying? Those are the two areas that I think we really need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you encounter those kind of holes in policy, what is Spectrum's role? Are you active in advocacy to create better policy, or do you function more of an advisor role where legislators come to you and ask what you need?
So that's a good question, because, we're a service provider. Our main mission, right, is to house young people and provide them with counseling. But as I say, we also have a voice. And we are allowed by law. They're pretty strict laws, but we are allowed to do advocacy, And I've testified many times on these issues in the legislature. And I've written columns in the Burlington Free Press and in Vermont Digger. So I always say to Seth, we're going to lose our tax-exempt status. I'm like, no. You are allowed, as a nonprofit service provider, to voice your opinion on issues on which you have expertise. That now, if you do it too much, there's certain barriers,
right.
But we're way below those, So I see that as our role, Andy.
Yeah.
I think nonprofits not only have to provide a service to whoever it is, the victims of domestic violence, but we also have an obligation to speak to the legislature and commissioners and say, hey, there are holes in our system. There are holes in our laws. We can do a better job with these people by changing the following things. I think we have an obligation as nonprofits to do that.
So, Mark, are there specific legislative initiatives that you're hoping you'll see pass this session?
We almost passed legislation last session to put money in to create what we call this missing middle. Okay.
Is this H91?
Yes. No, it's not H91.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
This was actually in the governor's recommend, and then it got pulled. It made it through the House, and then it didn't make it through the Senate. So it was like a budget item. So it's so funny. I just emailed the secretary today, like, hey, summer's over. We're ramping up. And so, that I was very involved in that. I was very disappointed that did not get through the legislature. I think I know what you have to learn, right? Like when you do this, you have to learn. I mean, I'll give you an example that it was a success. Okay, I got here when they interviewed me in 2002. I remember in the interview at Spectrum, there was some social workers, and they said, we got to get these kids ready by 18. I finally said, time out. What's the big deal about 18? He said, in Vermont, foster care ends at 18. When you turn 18, you have to leave your foster home or your group home. So I said, listen, my son is 17. He's an honor student at a Jesuit high school in New York City. If I said to him on his 18th birthday, hey, here's a cake and a card, and now you have to leave my house and support yourself, I don't think he'd make it.
Right.
But we're talking about kids who come from poverty, maybe have dropped out of high school, not from functional families. Like I said, I hope you hire me for this job. But even if you don't, that needs to change. So they did hire me for the job. And I had a ton of things to do. And I had never done any kind of lobbying, advocacy, but I started writing op-eds in the Burlington Free Press and wherever else. And it took 4 years. Took 4 years. I'm looking at the picture now of Governor Douglas signing a bill in our drop-in center with our kids, moving the age of discharge from foster care up to the 22nd birthday. So now 18 is another birthday. You don't have, if you're getting along with your foster parents, you can stay. Now, a lot of kids do choose to move on their own, which is fine. But at least now they have the option, right? So to me, that was a triumphant moment. And it was so interesting. I had never learned. I didn't realize. First, I'll never forget. I remember Jim Letty ran Howard Center. And I said, Jim, I wrote this op-ed and nothing's changed. And he said, well, good for you. You got a headline for one day. And he said, you need to go to every advocacy group that has anything to do with this issue and convince them that this has got to be their top priority. So, I went to the Kids Safe Collaborative, Voices for Vermont. They all agreed, okay. And then he said, you need to go see the Speaker of the House. Mm. So only in Vermont can you go see the Speaker of the House at her house. It was Gay Symington. And I met her at her house in Jericho. And she said, all right, explain this issue to me. So I said, okay, here's the issue. She goes, okay. She rolled out all the reps, I don't know, 150 reps. She was like, go see this one. This one needs an issue. This one might not get real. Like, go see this one. So I drove all over the state, meeting with these people and explaining. Here's the issue. So it took a few years, but I didn't give up. And I remember they passed. Somebody, the secretary came and said, okay, we're going to pass the bill. I'm like, great. Oh, we're going to pass the bill to study the issue. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
No.
Vermont loves its task forces and summer study groups.
There's nothing to study. We know what to do. So somebody said to me, oh yeah, another study, where good ideas go to die.
Yeah.
But then another advocate said, no, don't give up. Don't give up. Sometimes these things actually, and so sure enough, a year later, the commissioner, Steve Dale, he's retired now, called me and said, okay, the governor's going to sign it. I said, the governor's going to sign that bill at Spectrum because nobody did more than us. And he did. In fact, Governor Douglas just made a donation to us. Oh. And I said, Governor Douglas, I have a picture of you. I sent him a copy of the picture. I said, Governor, this is you signing that bill in 2008. And I can't tell you how many thousands of kids have benefited from that bill. Mm. And he emailed back and said, man, we both looked a lot younger then. But it's a good example. That's a good example. Do you think I could have done that in New York State? I highly doubt it.
Yeah, it is. There's something about the smallness of Vermont that does give a lot of access. It's true.
If you have a good idea how to improve things and you know how to do it, you know who to talk to, you know who to go see, you know how to line up your arguments and your constituents. Not every time. It's not easy, but it can be done.
Yeah.
And it can be done in a fairly short amount of time compared to California or New York or someplace.
Yeah. It's so great that you're so deep on the policy end because it's so important for providing these services and a data-driven and smart approach.
That's why I married a legislator.
Fair enough. I'm curious, you mentioned City Hall Park earlier and going from state policy to local, I'm curious what you make of the policy passed by the Burlington City Council on Monday and if you think it'll have a positive impact.
We have to do something.
Yeah.
What we have now is not working. Yeah. It's just not working. I'm good friends with Sean Burke. I met with him.
Oh, great.
I'm very glad he's back. The
new police chief for Burlington.
Yeah. He was good when he was here. I knew him when he was here. And then we had to do something. They passed the resolution. Now we have to see. In that resolution, they talk about the situation table. I don't go to those meetings, but my staff do.
Oh, they do. That's great.
Yeah, they do. They'll bring forward. We have a youth who's having these problems. How can we work with Howard Center and COTS? How can we? So the situation table has worked in other cities in Vermont, started in Baltimore, I think. So I'm glad we're doing that.
Excellent.
So I'm glad they passed it. I'll tell you what makes me nervous. Okay, we clean up City Hall Park, right? Close it from midnight to 6 a.m. But where do those people go?
Right.
Yeah. Like I even said to, Sean Burke, I was like, we opened up, we expanded our counseling program. We have a building now on South Pine Street.
Right.
And I'm seeing a lot of folks there who are clearly homeless or shooting up. I'm like, how come we're seeing that? Well, we're cleaning up the park. So, you know what I mean? It's like, until we deal with some of those earlier issues that I talked about, which is how do we provide real drug treatment that works? How do we provide real mental health care, including involuntarily committing people, if we have to, for a period of time. Those are the real, in my view, the real solutions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're kind of pushing the problem from one part of the city to the other.
Yeah, I do worry that we're sort of rearranging the deck chairs. Yeah, I hope we're not.
I hope not. I'm glad. I personally, my staff had reservations about the resolution. Spectrum itself did not take a position on it because of the issues I just talked about.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I can see, I think there's compassion fatigue right now. There's compassion fatigue,
Yeah.
I think the public, and I know a lot of those business owners, I know a lot of those restaurant owners, they're not lying.
Right.
They're losing staff, they're losing customers. Part of it is the Canadians not coming down, but that's a small part of it.
Yeah.
And, you go to Pine Street now. If I went to Pine Street tonight, Zero Gravity would be packed.
Oh, yeah.
Burlington Beer Company would be packed.
Yep.
Switchback they're doing right because
that's right where I live. Yeah.
Packed.
Yeah.
And because I think, well, they're good restaurants, but I think people feel safer there.
Well, I was just saying to my husband, Steve, the weekends in our neighborhood are just getting busier and busier. People are just going to the farmer's market and going to all the restaurants and businesses in the South End. And, we were just saying, wow, it's just getting so, energetic here on the weekends, which is really fun. But then we kind of came to the same conclusion. Oh, like people are leaving downtown, which is, I work on Church Street. So that's
right.
That's sad. Yeah.
I mean, it would be tragic to lose Church Street. It would be, it'd
be devastating to the local economy. Yeah.
It would be devastating economically to the state.
Yeah.
And also just, I don't know. I remember coming here in 1985 for the first time, and I had dinner at Daily Planet, and I walked down there. You see the lake. You see, this is a magical city. There are very few places in America like this.
Yeah.
We have a treasure, frankly. I can tell you, I came from Yonkers. This beats Yonkers by 100.
Yeah.
So we have to preserve it.
Well, in good news, you've just opened a new facility in St. Albans. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And I believe there's an open house coming up if listeners want to see what the work that you're doing firsthand.
Yes. So we opened up. So the state said to us, I don't know, 10 years ago, hey, you're doing such a good job in Chittenden County, helping youth who are exiting foster care, getting their high school diploma, can you do the same in Franklin County? Yeah, sure. So we hired 2 women who worked in Franklin County, helping kids get jobs, learn how to drive a car. And those 2 women, man, they rode me. They kept saying, Spectrum needs to be up in St. Albans, okay? There are, I don't know if this is still true. It was true at the time. There are as many children in foster care in Franklin County as there are in Chittenden County, even though we have like 4 times the population. So, some of the highest domestic violence rates, opiate abuse rates. So they said Spectrum needs to be up here. So I started going up there years ago and just meeting with people and looking. And a philanthropist who likes us called me and said, we want to make a 6-figure donation to Spectrum. What do you need it for? I said, St. Albans. I'm tired of talking about St. Albans. We'll direct it to St. Albans. So we opened up a drop-in center, just like the one. And that was great. But at the end of the day, we were handing out sleeping bags to kids. So I went to the legislature, and all my nonprofit, other executive directors said, oh, you'll never get it. You'll never get it. And I went to the legislature. I said, one-time money does not help me. I need money in the budget to create an 8 to 10 bed residence for homeless youth. And so it passed. And then Champlain Housing Trust applied for the money to buy a building, which was great. Yeah. So they bought a building, leased it to us. It's 3 blocks away from the drop-in center. Becca Ballant was there last week, and it provides 8 beds now, 10 beds when it gets really cold. And it's a place for kids to go. So it opens at 5 p.m. They stay there overnight. There'll be awake staff on the overnight. Then in the morning, it closes. Those go to school, go to work, or go to our drop-in center 3 blocks down, So I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy that we're able to do that. Because when you hear staff saying, yeah, we gave out a sleep, it's 20 degrees and we had to give a kid a sleeping bag last night. We had a kid living in a storage unit, somebody's garage, backseat of a car. I mean, man, it just, at least it pulls my heart out. I'm like, this is not right. It wouldn't be right if we were in Florida, but we're in Vermont where it's freaking cold, So I'm just, and then out of the blue, I know who it is. An anonymous donation gave us $1 million to support our work up in Kennedy, In addition, they usually give us 250. I said, is this in addition to the 275?
You got to check.
Yes, in addition. We really believe in the work that you're doing. And we want to, I was like, wow, thank you. Thank you.
That's so amazing.
So, I know.
It's funny, coming from the world of political fundraising where we have maxes, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money. But it's a good cause, and I'm glad people are giving to it.
Yeah. So that was a huge help. So it's just when I got here 22 years ago, God bless Rich Tarrant, right? He just passed away.
Yeah.
When I got here 22 years ago, very few people were donating to Spectrum. Very few. And I wrote an op-ed in the Free Press, and I saw an email on my screen from Rich Tarrant. And I knew the name. I was like, Rich Tarrant's emailing me? And it said, I read your op-ed. I agree with you. I'd like to meet you. So Rich came in. I met him. And then he said, here's a check for $25,000. Well, my finance director held it up and he was like, $25,000? That's more than half of what we raised all of last year.
Wow. Yeah.
And I actually wrote to his widow and I said, we're raising now over $4 million a year, and I said, when people saw your husband give us that money, it sent a sign to all the other philanthropists. Oh, it gave us credibility. So I said to her, he and you lit the fuse, back then. And now so many people support us and believe in us and believe in our kids. They believe in our kids. It's good. These are kids, I've said to her, these are kids who sometimes are hard to love. They can be surly. They can be nasty because they've had a very, very rough hand of cards dealt to them in life. And but it is through relationship. It's through welcoming them every day. It's through feeding them every day, talking to them every day, that they're finally able to trust an adult, right?
Yeah.
And then once you can trust an adult, then you can start to accept help. And then you can, there's a young man, wow, he was the commencement speaker at his college. And I took him out for breakfast the day before. He had been homeless, lived with us. And he said to me, I'm the first male in my family not to be in prison. My grandfather killed a man and went to prison. My father stole cars and went to prison. My brother's in prison, and I'm the commencement speaker at graduation tomorrow. Right? That's like a young woman who was living in a car. Somebody called me 8 years ago. This girl, her mother got injured. There's no family. Can you take her in? She now is halfway through her master's degree. It's very, very encouraging when you see young people. We have a woman working for us now. She's done a video for us 8 years ago. She was homeless, living in our shelter. Now she works for us. So I can throw all kinds of statistics. We have great data points, statistics, but when you hear stories like that, it brings it home. What we're doing doesn't work every time. I'd be alive. It's like 100% of the kids are coming to circle. No. But I think a lot of the kids who come here do get the help that they need, and they're put on a much better course in life.
Yeah. And the age group you're working with, so much time to turn it around and so much life left to do wonderful things with. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the advantage we have.
Yep.
Exactly.
So, Mark, one of the things I noticed recently you posted on Facebook that really caught my eye was this fun picture of you cooking at a kitchen in Spectrum. And you said that the staff made you make an angry face, which was funny. But you were cooking a meal and you were promoting an opportunity for the community to get involved and cook for these kids. And I'm married to a man who loves to cook for people, so I was immediately showed it to him. I'm curious if you can tell us a little more about how community members can get involved and be a part of the great work that you do.
So if you go on our website, spectrumvt.org, it's how to help. And of course, there's a click here to donate, but then there's also how to volunteer. And one of the things we have in St. Albans and in Burlington is a meal train. And so you click on, here's the day. Most people make dinner. What meal you want to make, And then you can make it at home or you bring it in. I like to cook it right there because I bring the ingredients. I get to meet the kids, right? You know, when you're executive director, it's budgets, it's strategic planning, it's meetings. But for once a month, I get to go in there, meet those kids, talk to them, you know, and they're really, really funny. Like, so what did I make? Chicken curry last week. And they're like, when are you going to make the salmon again? We love the salmon. Like, right, but there's other kids who say they're sick of the salmon, you know? And the St. Albans kids don't like salmon. And then I make breakfast once a month, too. I go into our shelter once a month at 7:30 a.m. I bring the waffle iron somebody gave us when we got married. And although they'll put it in order. They're like, we want omelets this week. Or how about bagels? So it's just a nice thing to do, especially executive director. You get to know the staff better. You get to know the kids better, you know. And some of the kids I've gotten very close with over the years, that's how it happened. They would come and join me in the kitchen and ask if they could help chop stuff. And then you start talking about their life and what they're doing, you know. Yeah. So it's just kind of a really nice, but we would love, especially now we lost our AmeriCorps, right? I think Trump, AmeriCorps funding got cut and it got put in, but it got cut. So we don't have we always have had an AmeriCorps food coordinator. So It would be great. It would be great if the public could go onto that website and click on the meal train and say, sure, I'll make spaghetti and meatballs. You know, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Sure. And the kids appreciate it. They really appreciate it.
My people would call that a mitzvah.
Mitzvah, yes. Yeah. See, I'm Catholic. I don't know what we call it.
Just a good deed works.
Just a good deed. A work of mercy. Yeah. Like God say, a work of mercy. There you go. Feeding the hungry. That's it.
We know you grew up on Long Island with Carvel, but you've earned your spot here in Vermont, and you're visiting Creemee stand. So when you go to the Creemee stand, what are you ordering?
But I live in Essex, so I love Palmer's.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they sold it recently, but hopefully, right, they're going to maintain the same excellent quality. And it's only open in the summer, so they'll be closing soon.
And what do you order, Mark?
Maple swirled with either coffee is good or maple and chocolate. Maple and chocolate, maple and coffee.
And do you get sprinkles?
You get the crunchies?
No, but my wife likes sprinkles.
Okay. All right.
And we get them with my son, and then don't laugh, but we have a miniature Australian Labradoodle, and she likes a little maple cream.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yes. Don't they have it with the dog biscuit? You get a dog
order? She doesn't like the dog biscuit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It does pale in comparison.
Does not like dog biscuit.
That's so funny.
It's sad. I'm on a first name basis with those people. That's sad. It's sad. I'm in that much.
No, that's amazing. I love it. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. This was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you're doing, educating our public about what's going on in Vermont and in the country. My wife used to be a journalist. She used to be a legislator, and she was a journalist. So important. It's one of the bedrocks of democracy in our state. So I commend you for the work that you're doing.
Right back at you,
Well,
Mark.
thank you. Mark Redmond, Spectrum Youth and Family Services, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Okay, we have dealt with some heavy topics here on this episode today. So we'll have a little fun and last licks. Joanna has reluctantly put back on the headphones.
Even though they've crushed my curls, I will survive.
I don't think that's possible.
They're not quite as resilient as they look.
I worry more about the integrity of the headphones against your hair.
I did hear them kind of whimpering when they saw me reaching for them.
So I have kind of an odd fact for you, Joanna. And I told this to my wife, and she said, how is that Vermont politics culture?
Ooh.
But remember, it's Vermont politics culture and beyond.
Wow.
And so this is well in the beyond territory. Cool. It's a map fact. Okay. I thought you might like this because you are
I'm a geographer by, my advanced degree, and I was a cartographer and GIS specialist for many years.
Right.
Yes.
And so I don't get dinged in Glossary of Shame. Cartographer is the person who guesses your weight at a carnival. Correct?
A cartographer is a person who makes maps.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, and maybe you're aware of this, the state of Arkansas is bordered by 6 states.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not quizzing you.
I was like,
You're like ready.
Please don't.
Yeah. No, this is not a quiz.
This is a trauma-informed response.
Yes. So starting at the top and working clockwise, you have Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma.
Whoa.
Starting from various points in Arkansas, you can get to every one of those 6 states by going due south.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah, you want to know how that works?
Sure.
All right. So the western border of Arkansas goes straight north and south, but it hits a point where it bends northwest.
Yeah.
So anywhere along that northwest point, if you go straight down, you're in Oklahoma.
Yep.
It goes at the bottom of it, the north-south. It follows the river, it follows the Red River, and the Red River bends east. So at any point, if you go south from there, you go straight into Texas.
Yeah.
All right. Louisiana is the easy one because it is right on the bottom.
Right.
The eastern border of Arkansas is the Mississippi River, and it mostly runs in a northeastern fashion.
Yeah.
So you can go where you are bordering Mississippi. You can go as it meanders northeast. You go south, you can get into Mississippi. As you follow the Mississippi River up, you can go south and get into Tennessee.
Yep.
The really goofy one is Missouri, which is straight above Arkansas, except for that little boot heel, that little bubble on the right-hand corner of Missouri. It follows a survey line, but apparently there was a wealthy landowner who did not want to be part of Arkansas when they created the state of Missouri. He didn't want to be in the territory. He wanted to be in the state of Missouri. And so he petitioned to have the border go from the straight survey line to the St. Francis River, where it shoots southwest, goes to another survey line straight east to the Mississippi River. So on that boot heel, because it goes southwest on the river, you can start in Arkansas just above that little bubble and go south right into that little boot heel portion of Missouri.
Well, that's a new one. And I did think I knew all the obscure map facts out there.
I would have thought you were partying with other map GIS specialists, like that was your social club. And this is the kind of stuff that you talked about.
We do kind of run in a pack. I mean, I'm excommunicated now, but yeah.
Is there an active licensure you have to keep on that?
No, there isn't. Yeah. But actually now they have like certificates, but there is like in Vermont, both in Vermont and New York, there was like a GIS like scene, and we would get together and yeah, it was pretty cool actually.
And they just turn away from you now if they see you coming down the street. Like,
no, but when you leave, and I remember being on the other side of this, like when you leave the trade, when I told people, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this politics thing instead for a while, and they were like, you're leaving GIS? And like I was like, yeah, I think I've hit my limit for a while. And they were like, oh my God. And I totally remember doing that to other people too, like when I was in the city or whatever, and people were like, oh yeah, I'm getting another kind of job, and I just was like, but it's like, it's weird, it's like a cult.
Were they like, how are you gonna make money at that?
Yeah. I mean, I think people like when I left, GIS originally to go work for Indivisible, people were like, what is that? We talked about that a little bit, and they did think it was a little bonkers, but it was right for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's my map fact. Now to the quiz. No, I'm just kidding. That's it.
All right. Nice work. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode.
Thank you all for listening.
Follow us between episodes for the latest updates on our socials at There's No A in Creemee on Instagram, Substack, and Blue Sky.
And catch us on our next episode of There's No A in Creemee, Vermont Politics, Culture, and Beyond in Apple Podcasts and Spotify.